Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this continuous chain and wire ring. And this is what it looks like. So as you can see, there's no obvious join in it. So it's just one continuous ring. And it's made from regular chain and then wire. And it's kind of quite flexible but still quite strong. So it's really good in the sense that it molds to your finger. It makes it a lot more comfortable. But it still keeps its shape. So if you want to learn how to make that, then stay tuned. And here are the things that you're going to need. You'll need a few pliers. You'll obviously need your wire cutters to cut your wire. And then I recommend having a pair of flat nose pliers handy, because you can get a much better grip on the wire than you can with your fingers. And sometimes maybe pulling the wire through can be a little bit tight. So I recommend having a pair of these ready. And then you'll need your wire, which in my case I'm using a 0.4mm wire, which is 26 gauge. This is a pretty good gauge to use because it's small enough to be able to go through a few times, most chains anyway, but it's also quite strong. And then obviously, last but not least, you'll need your chain. And in this case I'm just using a simple oval link chain, but you want to make sure that it's quite a fine chain, so you don't want the links to be too large or anything. It's hard for me to give you precise measurements because there's so many different kinds of chain out there, but just make sure that the links are consistent and that it's quite a fine chain, because obviously the larger the chain, the bulkier the ring is going to be. You don't want it to be too uncomfortable to wear. So just find some chain that you think is going to be suitable, and this is just an oval link one. So get all these things together and then I'll show you what to do next. So the first thing we need to do is you need to get your chain out, because we want to get it ready to be able to make the ring. So you get it out, and then what we need to do is start cutting up the sections that we need to use. Now for this ring that I made previously, I am using 6 lengths of chain. You can use more, you can use less, that's completely up to you, but I'm just going to show you how to do it with 6 lengths. And obviously it's going to be exactly the same no matter how many you use. So what I like to do is when I cut my chain, I just get a piece of scrap wire, spare wire, just of the 0.4 or anything that'll fit through. It doesn't have to be any particular length, it's just literally just some spare wire that I have, and it's just to hold the chain while you're cutting it. So what I do is I find the end of the chain, and then I get my wire through that, and then basically use my wire to hold the chain. And what you can always do is put a little bend on the end, so there's less risk of it sliding off. So that holds it quite nicely now. So I attach the one end of my chain to my wire just to be able to hold it taut, because it's quite difficult to do that just with your fingers. So just to help a little bit. And now what we need to do is measure the chain to cut off the amount that we need. So for this I'm going to get out my measuring tape. And for the ring I showed you to fit about my finger, I use roughly about 9 centimeters, and then I cut off a few links at the end. But it's going to be quite hard for me to give you a precise measurement, because it's all going to depend on obviously the size that you need the ring to be, but then also what chain you're using. But I would say try and go for about 8 to 9 centimeters, because you can always cut off the extra links, but obviously you can't really add them in because you need it to be a continuous chain. So rather have a little bit extra. So roughly about 8 to 9 centimeters I would say. So then you get your measuring tape and just lay it down next to it, and then you just get your wire cutters out, because you now want to cut your chain. So just grab the link where I've measured it to, cut it, and open it up. And then you just take your chain apart, and then you take the open link off and put it to the side. And even though it's going to seem like it's quite wasteful chain wise, sometimes you need to cut your chain to be able to use the measurement that you need, but I never throw any of it out because you can use it for other projects and stuff. So just put it to the side, keep it stored somewhere. So I now have this length, and this is what I'm going to cut all the rest of my lengths after. So I'm going to put one in back on my wire, the very last link, because this is purely just to measure out the other ones. And then you can take the other end that you just cut off and then put that last link on as well. And then you have two pieces of chain lying next to each other, like so. And I find that this is the best way to measure lengths of chain when you want them to be the same length, because you can then lie them next to each other like this, stretch them out, or even hold them up in the air so they naturally fall. Let's put that one back on. Like so. Make sure everything is stretched out nicely, and then you can just measure the other piece of chain from the first one. So you just go in and grab the link from the one that you need to cut, and then you cut it and open it up, and again take the cut link and put it to the side like so. And you then have two cut pieces of chain. If they're not the exact same length, don't worry too much about it. Don't sit and try and cut off each individual link. Just make it rough, you know, so they're roughly the same length if they're not exactly, because you probably end up having to cut a few links off at the end anyway, but you don't want to risk cutting off too much. So that's all you do. That's how you measure your chain. So I would do this 6 times. So put on the next piece, lay them out, measure them, and I would just measure 6 lengths of chain. So do that, and then I'll show you how we start off. So I've now cut off my 6 lengths of chain, and they're roughly the same length. So now what we need to do is start working with the wire. So you have all your links of chain still attached to this first piece of spare wire, and it's still just holding them all together. So what you want to do now is get out your 0.4mm wire that you're going to be working with, and cut off, let's say, roughly about 1 meter. Chances are you won't be using the full thing, but you also need enough of the ends to be able to grab them and pull them. So roughly about 1 meter, I would say. And then you can take these chains off and then do it that way, but the easiest way really is to leave them on, because you can then hold them outstretched like this, and then get much better access. So you want to get, they're still attached to the spare piece of wire. You want to get the 1 meter length of your wire out that you're actually going to be using, and get the end of it. And then what you want to do, they're already attached through the very first link. What you want to do is skip that, and you want to go through the second link, all of them. And the reason for this will become clear as we go along. So make sure you grab all the pieces of chain, which I didn't do. Just take your time. I think I have them here. So keep them on there, take the other wire out, the spare piece of wire that you were working with, and just put it to the side. We're done with that. So now you have all your lengths of wire attached to this, all your lengths of chain, sorry, attached to your, what's going to basically be your working wire. And it's not coming through the first link, it's coming through the second, which is why right at the beginning it's going to be a little bit confusing, because you have these individual links just hanging loose, but just try and ignore them for now. So you should have something that looks roughly like this. So now what we want to do is start basically forming the ring. You want to make sure that the wire, that you leave a bit of a tail coming out where you have your short end. It doesn't have to be too much, just a little bit, maybe 20 to 30 centimeters or so. And then the first part here is what's going to be the most fiddly part, because everything obviously still is loose and it's kind of moving about. So just, especially at the beginning, just take your time and then do it slowly, and then it'll work out fine. So what we need to do is grab the other end of your wire, which is your long tail, and like I said, you're going through the second link. So the first links that are hanging loose on the other side, try and make sure that they're all kind of tucked away on the other side for now, so they don't get in your way while you're working with it here. So what we want to do is grab this long end of wire, and we basically want to start weaving in and out of the chain links. So try and hold, basically try and hold it like I'm kind of showing you here. Obviously find out whatever's most comfortable for you, but hold them in a way that you have your links stretched out, so you have a bit of tension on there, because you want to be able to see your links opened up, and you want them to lie in the right direction. Because what you need to do now is you have the end tail, the long tail of your wire coming out on this side, and you now want to go back through from this way, but through the very next link, so the next row of links. And obviously, because the chain, the way it's been put together, they aren't naturally sat side by side. They're kind of laying one way and then the other way, and then one way and the other way. But that will kind of end up working out once you start weaving. So try and hold your wire like this, hold your chains and stuff like this out top, so they all lie in the same direction. All your links are lying in the same direction. Nothing is overlapping in the wrong way. You can kind of tell when you're looking up close at the links. And then get your end, and you want to go back through the next row of links. What you can do, just a little tip, when you hold it like this, just roll your finger just a little bit to help lift up the links. And then go through the first link, and then through the whole entire row. Make sure they're in the same direction, and make sure that you don't miss a link. So make sure you go through all the links. If you need to, just double check. So I've now put my end through the very next row of my links, and basically you then just need to pull the rest of your wire all the way through, and just do it gently, especially because at the beginning it's still quite fiddly, until you kind of end up with a little loop like this. And then you can kind of grab the rest of the chain and just start pulling it nice and gently. And your end links, the ones that you left loose, are going to kind of maybe get a bit in the way to begin with, but just try and keep track of them, because it's just until you've done a few rows and it'll become a lot easier. So you basically now have your wire going through the second row of links and the third row of links. So you've now started weaving your wire through. So I've now done the first two rows, and we need to move on to the third row. So as you can tell, because it's only the first two rows, it's still quite loose end fiddly, but we just need to do a couple more rows and then that's going to become a lot easier. So just try and do your best to hold it so you can work with it. So what we need to do is basically, the best thing I suggest is to kind of hold it up and let your wires drop. And then some of them will fall the natural way, the right way, but some you might just have to adjust, because you want to make sure that all the links fall the correct way in the very next row. So they're all facing the same way as each other, but also compared to the first row you did. You pulled your wire through the first row. You want them to face that same way, so that when you're weaving your wire through, it all becomes uniform and it doesn't end up too bulky. So try and sort your links out so they're facing the same way, and just try and then hold it. So like I said, the first part is the fiddliest bit because you don't have much to hold on to either. And then just grab the end of your long tail of wire again, because you now want to use that to go through the third row, making sure that you do all the links in the same way. Try and hold your wires a bit taut or let them drop if you can. And I just need to sort out my first link. It's falling the wrong way. There we go. So then get the end of your wire and put it through one link at a time, making sure that you grab every single link and that you grab it the right direction. So just do one link at a time and just, if you need to, manipulate it along the way. Like so. I've got my wire through. And then I'm just going to double check that I have everything correct before I pull it all the way through. So try and hold your wires and your chain out a bit taut, just to double check that you haven't missed any links and that they're all turning in the right direction. It looks like they are. And then just what I usually do is put my fingers on the chain and then just slowly pull my wire through. Again, don't pull it all the way through just yet, just so you have a bit of a loop on this side. Because you just want to make sure everything is taut before you pull it all the way through. So I usually pull the short tail tight before I pull this tight, because what can happen is when you have your wires go in different directions, if you pull this can move out that way a little bit and you end up with like an open piece of wire here, and that can happen further down as well if you're not careful. So I usually pull that tight and then put my fingers on the area of chain that I'm working with, and then I just gently pull this wire tight. And pull it nice and tight. You want to make sure you got a lot of tension on there, because with it being 0.4 it's not going to break just from pulling it. So like so, that's the next row. It's slowly starting to form. It's still going to be a bit fiddly because we're still at the beginning, but it's going to gradually get better. So again, we need to then move on to the next row, and you can either choose to then work from this side, just sort out your row from this side and then put your wire through, or you can turn it over, which I prefer to do. I prefer to work from the same way. I think it's just probably because I'm right-handed. But that is completely up to you. It doesn't make a difference in the design as long as you make sure to still turn the links the right way. So I've turned it around, and then we need to sort out the links on the next row to go through them. And then that's the fourth row that we're going to be going through. And just make sure that they're turning in the right direction, which means not the previous row you just went through, but the row before that, which was the second row. You want to make sure that they're turning the same way as that row, because that's what's going to give you that uniform look. So roughly do what you can with that. Get your links ready, and then get the long end of your wire and start going through your links. Let's do one at a time. Make sure you don't miss any links. Just take your time with it. Like I said, it's still quite fiddly. Get all the way through. The final link, like so. Just pull it through a bit so it doesn't come out. And then just check that you've caught them all and that they're all pointing in the right direction. And that looks pretty good to me. So you'll start to see from each row that your chain is kind of lying up side by side, alternating rows. So now I put my fingers on the chain and then I start pulling my wire all the way through. And like before, I leave a bit of a loop and then I just pull this tight before I pull all the way tight. So basically from the previous row, pull that tight, put my fingers on it, and then start pulling this loop in, because that's going to prevent you from getting any looping of your wire on the opposite sides. So you want to try and avoid that. Like so. I'm going to flip it around again. If you don't flip it, then just stay the same way. And now it's gradually starting to get easier because we've done a few rows now. And the links are also starting to fall more naturally into place. So get through the next row. One link at a time. Like so. As you can see, that went a lot easier. Pull it through, double check it. Make sure this is pulled tight. Put your fingers on it and then pull the loop nice and tight. And you want to give it nice tension, like I mentioned, because you want it to be quite a substantial and sturdy ring. Flip it around again. Get your links ready a bit. Just sort them out as best you can. Like so. Grab the end of your wire and start feeding it through. Make sure you don't miss out any links, because it's not going to ruin the whole piece in a sense, but obviously when you're done with it, it's not necessarily going to stand out a whole lot, but when you've made it, you will probably notice it more. If you do miss a link or two, and you don't find out until you've gotten a lot further or you're done, don't worry too much about it, but just try and avoid it if you can. Like so, and I've got all of them in the right direction. So pull it till you have a loop, and then pull this tight with your fingers on it, and then keep your fingers there, nice and tight. So you're holding everything into place and then just pull this long end tight, like so. And what I suggest you do as well is throughout, just check that you're not getting those loops on the side with your wire. Because if you are, rather just catch it straight away and then go back and retighten it, rather than missing it and you can't really do anything about it later on. So you just keep going like this. And as you can see, it's already gotten quite a bit easier because you now have something to hold on to, but also it helps the links fall naturally in the way that they kind of need to fall. So just keep going, a row after the other, until you reach about the size that you think you need it to be. So I've now reached the length where I feel I'm getting to the point where it's long enough. And now what you want to make sure to do is you want to measure as you go, because you want to make sure you don't end up making it too long or too short. So when you get to a point where you feel like you might be about right, you want to either get your ring mandrel out or something else around you can use. If you're making it for yourself, you can just measure it around your finger and then join it up and see how much space that you've got left. And then see if you need to weave a bit more or whether you feel like it's about right. So choose a size and then bring your ends together. And then what you can see on this side, that's where we began, so that's where we have the loose single links left. And on this, we have the rest of the chain links. So what you want to do is just measure. You don't want them to completely meet up, you want to have a little bit of space, but not too much. And maybe as well just account for the ring, just becoming a tiny little bit smaller as well, because we're going to continue weaving afterwards. So when you feel it's about right, when they're almost meeting up, then it's about time to join up the ring. So now what we want to do is we want to get rid of the excess chain down on this end. So again, you want to get your wire cutters out and you want to just do one chain at a time, because you want to make sure you don't cut off too much. Now what you need to do is, we've gone through a last row, but you need to leave an extra link of the chain hanging out underneath. So don't cut the very first link, but cut the one below that, so you have one link left when you've cut it. So cut it, twist it open, and then take it off. So you have one loose link below your last row you did, just like in the beginning when we have a loose link on each row. So keep doing that all the way across. Cut it, twist it and take it off. Make sure to leave that one link hanging loose. And do that all the way across. So I've now cut off all the excess chain and I'm left with one loose link on each row in both ends. And this is where we now want to join the ends together. And this is where it becomes clear why I told you to leave the loose links at the beginning, in the very first row. Because now, you grab the end of your wire again. You can use the long or the short one, it doesn't matter. And then to join up the two ends, what you want to do is start out your row like you normally would. So go through the first link and grab that, And then instead of continuing over across that row, you want to go to the other side and grab the first link on that row. Just the first link, like so. So you now have one link from each side, and then basically this is how you're going to connect them. And this is going to probably be the fiddliest bit about the whole thing, because it is tricky just grabbing that one link on the opposite rows. But just take your time, do it slowly, and make sure you grab the right links, and then it'll work out. Just do one link at a time. Make sure you grab the right ones. And try and make sure you don't skip any links by accident or anything, because obviously this is going to be the join, so you want this to be quite secure. Back up to the top row, find the right link. As you can see, quite fiddly, but it is possible. Yeah. It's the wrong way around, I think. Just try and like force the links out so you can grab them with the end of your wire. Make sure you grab the link the right way around, consistently, like you would do if you were doing a normal row, so it doesn't twist on you. So just continue like this all the way across until you reach the other end. So I've now managed to get my wire all the way through, all the links alternating between the top and the bottom, grabbing one link from each in between each other, going all the way through, and then what you'll probably be able to see is that you haven't pulled it tight yet, but you'll be able to see that basically it's going to blend in and look like it's just part of the chain, just like all the way around. So you want to pull that all the way through, and nice and gently. Make sure you tighten that end, keep hold with your fingers, and then pull it through nice and tight. And there's basically joined up, but as you can tell, the whole ring itself is still quite loose and quite wobbly in a way. So that's why now we're basically just going to continue weaving. So what you can do is, this is where you want to get your short tail into it as well, especially because the join, we want to make sure the join is nice and secure and strong. So what you can do is, that's coming out from here, and then you just go into the next row. So basically you continue weaving where this would naturally go for the next row. Just go through the whole way. Where you've already put the previous wire is already coming through. That's why using the point form, you're able to get your wires through at least twice, which you need it to be able to make it nice and strong and secure like this, like so. So you now got your short tail through ones, which has helped secure the join a bit more. And then you just basically continue weaving with both ends each their own direction. So you get your end, you move to the next row, just like you've been doing when you created the ring band to begin with. Go through the whole row, still making sure you're grabbing every link. It might be a little bit easier now because it's a bit more substantial already. But at the same time, obviously, because you're putting your wire through multiple times, so it's filling out the space in the chain as well. So you might find that some rows are a little bit more difficult to get through. But just take your time, work your way through. And coming out here, making sure you go into the next row. Making sure you're not missing any links out. Pull it through gently, get to this point, pull it tight, put your fingers on it, and pull your wire all the way through and pull it tight. Make sure to still do that, pull it nice and tight, because it's really going to tighten up the links together and make it a lot more substantial, a ring. More durable as well. So just keep going like this. And basically what you want to do is get all the way around one more time. So you're basically going through the ring band at least twice, because that's going to really give that substantial feel to it and make it a lot stronger and tighten it up as well. And just make it a lot stronger. And as you can see, if you can tell the difference, these lengths are still a bit loose, but then when you look here, you've gone through twice. It's all pulled a lot nicer and tight together. So you just continue like this all the way around, making sure you do it with both ends, working them a bit away from the join. And something you could do as well, it's just a little design feature you could add to it. I haven't done one, but what you could always do is, like you see here, it's a little bit hard for me to just push it or pull it through with my fingers, so I just use my plier, because you can get a much better grip. And then pull it through, like you've been doing the whole time. But as I was saying regarding like a little design tip, I haven't done one like it, but what you could always do, as you've gone through the first time and you joined it up, when you then start to go through the second time, you could always, these points where you're going through the rows, you could always maybe add some beads on the outside. Add some small seed beads or something. So now I'm coming out from a row, put a seed bead onto your wire, and then just continue through to the next row like you would do. Pull it nice and tight, and then when you pull it, if you put a seed bead on, that will sit there then on the outside of your ring band all the way around. So that's something you could always do, different colours and that. And as you can see, it's tightening up really nice and tight on here. It's still flexible and mouldable, so it'll shape to your finger, but it's going to be a lot more substantial. So just continue like this, and then I'll show you how to finish it off. So I've now gone all the way around the ring again with my wire, and I've reached the point where they meet up, where I probably won't be able to really get much more wire through the links. So now all that's left to do is finish it off. And to do this, ideally you don't want to just cut the wire and then leave it, because you're going to have a little bit of an end sticking out, and that is most likely going to scratch or irritate. So what you want to do is get your wire cutters and just cut off so you have a few millimeters, and then get rid of the rest. And then what I just do is bend the end back on itself and get it into position, basically so it's ready to go back through the next row as if you were going through it. And then so you just start to feed that end into that row. This is simply just to finish off the wire and to not have a scratchy end left. So, it can be a little bit fiddly because you only have a very short end left. And then you just want to push the wire in, the end, to get it right in there so nothing can catch and pull it back out. And you do the same on the other side. What I usually like to do is just put my end in first before I cut it, just to make sure I've got space there. To actually feed the small end into. Say if I don't have space, then you can always try to go back to the other side. This seems very tight. And there we go, it's going in now. So cut it off, leave a couple of millimeters, and take your flat nose and bend it back around on itself. And feed it in through the links on the next row. Like so. And then hold your finger on the other side so no wire is getting pushed out. And then just use your flat nose pliers to push it all the way in, push it flat. Like so. You can always go over with your fingers just to make sure that you can't feel anything. And that is basically the ring done now then. You can see you still have the movement in it, but it's quite substantial and strong because we're going through the whole thing twice with the wire. And it would be really nice as well if you can then get some coloured chain maybe and get some wire that matches so you can make them in different colours as well. So that's how you make this ring. So I hope you enjoyed that and thank you very much for watching.